Good morning, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome in. Happy Monday. I always say Happy Monday, and it's never really. Nobody really likes Mondays, so I don't know why I say Happy Monday. Okay. That guy Jeremy buying plants. I love your screen name. Oh my gosh. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome in. Can you hear me okay? Thank you so much for letting me know. Soli wants to say hi. This is the toddler. She always likes to make an appearance at some point and say hello.
Someone was detected at your driveway.
She's almost 8 months old and she's a terrorist. Just a terrorist. Yes, you are. You're a terrorist. But she's my little shadow. But anyway, good morning, everybody. Welcome in. Thanks for being here. This is week 5 of our plant session series. We're about halfway through. You have 2 chihuahuas. Aw, I love chihuahuas. If I could have them all, I would have them all. I would have them all. We had a long hair chihuahua. She was almost 16 and she passed. And then we got that thing. And she is a lot of fun, but she is a terrorist. She's a toddler. She's a true toddler. Yeah, you need a jacket this morning. It's like 49 degrees and it's kind of chilly here. Female short hair, my male's long hair. Aw. Yes, we actually have 2 as well. We have 3 dogs total, but we actually have 2. George, come here. Come here. Come say hi. This is Georgia. We call her George. Yes. We call her George. She's 8. So, but anyway, I know, right? And then there's Sadie, which Sadie never wants to show herself on camera. She's very camera shy, but she's cute. She's a blue heeler mix. We think she's got Chihuahua in her too because she has an attitude problem, but
it's because she was raised around them.
pretty much. But anyway, do me a favor, guys. Share this stream. Double tap that screen. We are talking about plant nutrition today, and this is probably the most anticipated part of the series because a lot of people don't know how to properly. I know you have a George and you have Blue. A lot of people don't know how to properly feed their plants or why you need to even feed your plants. A lot of people just water. And we talked previously about watering and how to water properly. We've talked about substrates. We've talked about, just about everything that you can possibly imagine. But now we're getting into the nitty gritty. This week is all about plant nutrition. We're going to talk about the different nutrients that are there. We're going to talk about basically how nutrient deficiencies or too much nutrients can affect your plants and what they're going to do to your plants. Next week we talk about lighting and grow lights, and then we're getting down to the end. So we have talked about before at the very, very beginning of the series, we talked about how plants don't literally eat food. Okay, they don't eat food like we eat food. Plants are very self-sufficient. They make their own food. They make their own energy, and that's what makes them grow. But they do require 3 basic things in order to make their own food. Anybody know what those 3 things are that plants require in order to make their own food? Anybody have any idea what 3 things a plant needs in order to create its own food and therefore grow and grow properly? Sun or light? Yep, that's 1. Water? Yep, that's 2. And then the third thing, no, not air. I mean, yes, but no. They need nutrients. They need nutrients. Yes, absolutely. And that's what we're talking about today. So we need light, which is the energy source for the plant. They need water. Water is more of the transport medium to move all of the nutrients and stuff like that through the plant. And then, of course, the building blocks are the nutrients. And somebody started off by saying some of the nutrients. There's lots of different nutrients, but the 3 major nutrients, they're called macronutrients. NPK, that's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And we're going to talk about each of those a little bit in depth and why they are important. And by the way, this is being multicast over to YouTube. So if you cannot watch the whole thing, if you don't have a chance to take notes and you need to take notes, you can always watch it later on YouTube. Or just refer back to it at some point. All of the Plant Session series videos have been multicast. So if you need to backtrack and see a previous episode, you're more than welcome to by going over to our YouTube channel. You can find our YouTube channel in our show notes is our link tree. The link tree, if you'll just copy and paste that over into your web browser, that will take you over to our link tree. All of our Amazon recommended products are there. Our YouTube channel link, our Facebook, Instagram, all those different things are over in the link tree for you. Okay. So let's talk about NPK first: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. We're going to start with nitrogen and why nitrogen is so important, as well as all of the macronutrients. All 3 of them are super important, but why nitrogen is really, really important. Anybody know? Anybody want to take a guess at what nitrogen does for your plant? Welcome in, everybody. Happy Monday. I think happy Monday. Hopefully it's not like super cold where you are. All right. Well, nitrogen is for leaf growth and chlorophyll production. 15, yikes. I know. I think we have like fully acclimated to the weather here because it's like 49 and it feels chilly to us. I think we have fully, 2 years ago you would have said 49 and I would have been like, oh, it feels nice out today. But anyway, so nitrogen is for leaf growth and chlorophyll production. And 20, ouch. That's really, yeah, it's been really windy here too. It's been super windy here too. Okay. All right. So, chlorophyll. When you have more nitrogen for the plant, you're going to have more chlorophyll production. And if you have more chlorophyll production, what's that going to give you? It's going to give you big, not necessarily big, but deeper green leaves. Okay. When you have more chlorophyll available, you have more energy production that the plant can do. And therefore, you have faster growth and sometimes larger growth as well. So you get big green leaves. You get beautiful, lush, deep green leaves. Okay. So nitrogen helps the plant to make chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is what makes the plants green and gives you that beautiful, lush foliage. And we're going to talk about variegated plants too. But nitrogen is very, very important. It's important for that. It's also necessary for the production of proteins and things of that nature that are good for the structure of the plant, building those leaves. If there's no nitrogen, A plant literally can't make any new leaves because it needs that nitrogen. In some form or fashion, it needs nitrogen. It's not going to make new leaves because there's not going to be any nitrogen, and nitrogen is needed to make chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is needed to make leaves. Hopefully that makes sense. So think of it in terms of nitrogen is for your leaf growth. Okay. When, like I said, when nitrogen is available, the plant is going to produce more leaves. It's going to produce bigger leaves. The leaves are going to be thicker. They're going to be more green. Your vining plants, like your pothos and your philodendrons, they're going to have longer, more fuller vines. So what do you think if the nitrogen is low in a plant? What do you think that is going to show as? Good morning, Daisy. Actually, I'm doing all right today. But thank you. So if nitrogen is low or sometimes even absent, discoloration of the leaves. Yes. Nitrogen makes older leaves. Yes. Naked vines. Pigeon is on it as well as PK Phyllis. Okay, so your older leaves, if your nitrogen is low, your older leaves, and the older leaves are generally at the bottom of the plant, your older leaves are going to turn a uniform pale yellow. They're not going to start out being, yellow on one side and then turn yellow. That's just going to be a uniform pale yellow color. You might get leaf drop. New leaves that come in are probably going to be very small compared to other ones that have come in. And your plant can look leggy. It can, if you've got a vining plant especially, it might have, instead of, if I've got a node here and a node here where my leaves are coming out, and that's normal, with a lack of nitrogen, my nodes can actually get longer. And of course, then you have the leaf drop as well that can make those vines leggy. Okay. So those are some things to keep in mind when you think about nitrogen and the lack of nitrogen, is that if we've got leaves that are pale in comparison to everything else, if they're coming in a lot slower, if they're coming in a lot smaller, if your vines are leggy, that's probably a nitrogen problem. Well, what about too high? Because you can always have too much nitrogen. If you have too much nitrogen, it actually can weaken the structure of your plant. It will result in really dark green leaves, but if you have too much nitrogen, what do you think happens to those variegated plants? And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about variegation and all the different macronutrients, but what do you think too much nitrogen can do to your really beautifully variegated plants? They can revert. Exactly. That is one of the main reasons why they do. There's other reason. There's another major reason too, but we'll get to that in a minute. If you have too much nitrogen, just like having, there too much of anything can be bad for a plant, but in extreme cases, you can get root burn, and you can also get salt buildup. What do you recommend to test what? The nitrogen? You're not going to test for the nitrogen. You're going to feed with a proper fertilizer, a proper feeding schedule. And we'll talk about that as we go along in here. Okay. So just kind of keep in mind what we talked about so far. Nitrogen is for green growth. If you have more nitrogen in the plant, you're going to get more leaves. If you have less nitrogen, you're going to get less growth and probably yellowing of the leaves, most likely yellowing of the leaves. So what about the variegated plants? What exactly is happening when we talk about a variegated plant like a Monstera albo or a variegated pothos or something like that. You've got these leaves that are, some parts are green, some parts are white, some parts are yellow, some parts are very pale. What exactly is happening in that variegated leaf? Because remember, if you can remember, a leaf takes in light to create, they missed the memo. The leaf takes in the light through that chlorophyll, and that makes the energy for the plant. Is there chlorophyll? Chlorophyll is a green pigment. Is there chlorophyll in the pale parts? Is there chlorophyll in the yellow or white parts? There's not, right? Everybody agrees on that. They have less chlorophyll, those variegated leaves. So those pale areas, those white areas, those cannot photosynthesize. So you're relying heavily on the green part of that leaf. That is why whenever you purchase pink variegation, yes, because pink is not green. Yes, pink is not green. It has to be green. Chlorophyll is the green pigment. Okay, so if they can't photosynthesize, when you go to buy a plant and you see like a Monstera albo and the whole leaf is completely white, you don't see even a speck of green on it. How long do you think that leaf is going to last? It's not going to last very long at all. You're going to lose that leaf. Okay, so when you have a leaf that is partial green, partial white, like maybe it's a half moon variegation, you still have part of that leaf that is creating chlorophyll and photosynthesizing. Okay, think of a variegated leaf as like a plant with reduced solar panels. Okay, it has reduced solar panels, and that's a great way to think about it. But there's ways that you can make sure that that variegation stays. One of the things that you don't want to do with your variegated plants is feed them too much nitrogen, because what does nitrogen do? Nitrogen makes for green leaves. It increases chlorophyll production. We get a lot more green pigment, and as we mentioned before, too much nitrogen can actually cause your variegated plants to revert. So what's the answer? What do we do to fix that? Because the plant still needs nitrogen, but we're afraid to lose that beautiful variegation that we just spent money on a gorgeous variegated plant for. What do we do? What we're going to do is we're going to feed at a lesser amount. So if you're feeding, for example, half strength fertilizer with your variegated plants, you're going to half that even more. So if you're feeding at half strength, you're going to feed your variegated plants at quarter strength, or sometimes even eighth of a strength, so that they're still getting some nitrogen and other macronutrients, but they're not getting so much that they're forced to concentrate on making green leaves. Okay. Good morning, Lex. How are you? But with variegation, there's one key element that if you don't have this, or you don't have the proper amount or type of this, that is probably going to cause your variegated plants to revert just as much as too much nitrogen. Anybody know? Light. Yep. You have to have bright indirect light. And next week we talk about lighting and grow lights, but you have to have bright indirect lighting or gentle morning sun, sitting in a window, or always full spectrum, just like sunlight. Full spectrum means it's all of the spectrum that is found in sun. So I'll just do my little spiel now, because I always talk about it in my lives when we get to talking about grow lights. Stay away from the red and purple lights. Stay away from the red and purple lights. They are not full spectrum. You have to have, your lighting should mimic, yeah, if it's white light or warm white light, they should be. We've got Barina in the greenhouse, and they're full spectrum. But it should say full spectrum. If it's giving off white light or warm white light, no pink, no red, no purple. That is one part of the spectrum. That's the red part of the spectrum, or that's the blue part of the spectrum. Plus, there have been studies, and I blow people away when I tell people this all the time. There have been studies to show that prolonged exposure, prolonged exposure to the red, purple lights that everybody has is really bad for you. Number one, it causes sleep problems. Number two, it causes many people to have anger issues. Just think about that. Okay. And we'll talk more about light next week, but you want your light to be full spectrum. Okay. So your variegated plants have to have nitrogen, but they don't need as much. Yeah, I've always used full spectrum too. Yeah, that's why I'm always so pissed off. Probably. Yeah, no. It's just, plus it's not pretty. I mean, you want to live in an environment where everything's always purple or blue or red or whatever. That just, I mean, think about it. It's not pretty. But yeah, there have been studies to show that it's not healthy for you. So, all right. So, a good approach with most plants is going to be, most variegated plants is going to be something like a 2-1-2. And what I mean by that is, good morning. What I mean by that is the 2-1-2. When you look at a fertilizer package, you'll see where it says, 10-10-10, 3-1-5, whatever. There's 3 different numbers with a dash in between. That is, the first number is nitrogen. The second number is phosphorus. The third number is potassium. And we're going to talk about phosphorus and potassium next. But with nitrogen, with your variegated plants, you want to try and stick with either a totally balanced, like a 1-1-1, where everything is even, or and that could be a 10-10-10. It could be a 20-20-20. It doesn't matter, but everything is even. You want to keep with a 1-1-1 ratio, or even a 2-1-2, or 10-5-10, 20-10-20, something like that. You want to keep with a somewhat more balanced fertilizer. If you've got all green plants and with no variegation, and you want to boost those, I know, too much matching. If you want to boost those big green leaves, then you can use something with a higher amount of nitrogen. But for the variegated ones, we need to be really balanced and really careful. And you want to feed at probably quarter strength. Usually when I feed my plants, I feed everything at half strength. And I have really good lighting, so I don't have to feed at quarter strength. But if I have not so great lighting, or I had not so great lighting, I would probably feed it, instead of half strength, I'd feed it a quarter strength. So reduce the amount of strength, not the amount, but reduce the strength of your fertilizer that you're using, especially for the nitrogen, down to a half or a quarter even for your variegated plants. Okay. Light matters more when it comes to variegation, though. Light matters more, because when there is more, remember, with a variegated plant, the only parts of that plant, the only parts of that leaf that are producing chlorophyll are the green parts. So those green parts have to, we'll get to fish poo. Hold on. We'll get to fish poo. Because we'll get to it. The green parts are the only parts that make the chlorophyll. So you have to increase the light. You have to increase the light that is available to help the green parts really maximize, to keep that whole leaf, that whole plant healthy. Okay. So now keep that in mind when I say that with low light or incorrect lighting, low light and high nitrogen, what happens? We mentioned this before. Low light, high nitrogen, guess what's going to happen to your variegated plant? It's not going to be variegated anymore. Or it's going to revert. And some people actually some people don't like variegated plants, and that's cool. If you don't like variegated plants, that's fine. But somebody asked about pink variegation. The same is true because pink, I know, right? Who doesn't like variegated plants? I think just about all my plants are variegated. Well, not all of them, but most of them. Somebody asked about pink, you know. You can't be their friend. I know. There are some gorgeous variegated plants out there, and the more variegated for me, the better, the happier it makes me. But, you know, if it's not green, whether it's a pink variegation, I don't care if it's a blue variegation, which doesn't exist, but, you know, it doesn't matter. If there's variegation, no matter what color that variegation is, because it's not green, it is not going to produce energy for that plant. So the rest of that leaf has to work double time, basically. Yeah, most people love variegated plants. Are variegated plants more of a challenge? Absolutely. Absolutely they are. Okay. So, all right. So I had written down a couple of notes in here as far as like just a few plants because I personally only have philodendrons and Scindapsus and pothos. Okay. And all of those pretty much for me, it's just easier. With so many plants, I can't have a gazillion. There probably will be. You never know. I have so many plants that it's just easier for me to keep them all in the same kind of area as far as care and stuff like that. Plus, I've got like, 10 gazillion other things going on at any one time. So, I don't have alocasias. I don't, because they hate me. I don't have syngoniums. I don't have Hoya because they require different care. But pothos and philodendrons are very similar in the type of care that they need. So, philodendrons, pothos, they do really well with bright indirect light and moderate, oh, I'm glad, and moderate nitrogen. Okay. If you've got a Monstera albo or a Monstera aurea, go on the low side. They still need nitrogen. They have to have that nitrogen, but they don't need a whole lot. So I would probably, with your Monstera albos, you want to look at feeding it maybe whatever fertilizer you're using, feed it maybe quarter or an eighth of a strength. Okay, every time you water. And we're going to talk about different fertilizing strategies and what can work and what doesn't work and stuff like that. Syngoniums, I know variegated syngoniums are very, very sensitive to not having proper light. So issues with your variegated plants, they rely on that light more to maintain their variegation than they would for like a pothos or philodendron. They really need that light. Okay. All right. So we talked about that. Okay. Any questions about nitrogen? Because we'll move on to phosphorus. So if you have any questions about nitrogen and what nitrogen does, oh, thank you, Daisy. I appreciate you. Yes, tips are greatly appreciated. I spend a lot of time putting these class sessions together for you, and I learn too when I'm doing this. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. I've got to pass that tip along or whatever. So tips are definitely appreciated. I appreciate it so much. All right. Any questions about nitrogen? Nitrogen again is what gives us the big green growth. Okay, for the most part, if you just think nitrogen is for green growth. Okay, so if you've got a variegated plant, you don't want to feed full strength nitrogen. You want to do it at half or even quarter strength. And we'll get into that a little bit more here in a bit. So the next major nutrient then in the NPK This would be the middle number. This would be phosphorus. Okay. Phosphorus is basically for root development. You take a cutting and you put it in water or you put it in soil or whatever you're doing. One of the things that can help push out those roots is by making sure that you've got more phosphorus in your fertilizer. Pushing out new leaves, but then they don't open, they just dry. Oh, yes, it is. We're going to get to that. Hang tight, Carrie. We're going to get to that. Yep. It's nutrient or humidity or both. So, yeah, we're going to get to it. Because I was like, oh, that's cool. All right. So, phosphorus is for roots. It's also important for flowering plants. It's important for transferring energy to the plant. So when you water your plant, you're watering the roots, right? And if you don't have phosphorus in your fertilizing or your food mix, then the roots aren't going to be able to push the rest of the nutrients up into the plant. Okay. So if you think about in terms of, okay, we mentioned with nitrogen, if you didn't have enough nitrogen, it was like your plant was working on reduced solar panels, or if you have a highly variegated plant, your plant is working on reduced solar panels, okay? With phosphorus, if there's not enough or there's no phosphorus, you've got a low or a dead battery, basically, because that's what drives the roots to be able to pull those nutrients that you've just put into that soil or soilless mix and pull them up into the next plant. Okay. Phosphorus deficiency. Stunted growth is one thing. Your leaves can look dull. They can actually look off, like they might have a bluish tinge, or instead of being kind of a medium green, maybe all of a sudden they're a really darker green, and they're not supposed to be that dark. If you've ever noticed that your leaves or your stems, especially in the underside of the leaves, if they have like a reddish tint or a purplish tint that's not supposed to be there, that's phosphorus also. Okay. Poor root development. If you put a plant in, maybe you take a cutting and you put it into water and you've got little teeny weeny roots after a month or so, and you're supposed to have more roots than that after a month or so, your phosphorus is off. Okay. So, phosphorus is, if you're trying to do like a propagation, phosphorus is really important. So you would want to look for something that's like maybe a 10-30-10, for example. Okay. Or if you're trying to do a lot of blooms on your plants, like Hoyas benefit a lot from increased phosphorus as well as potassium, which we're going to talk about next. Okay. There are times when you want to definitely increase the amount of phosphorus that's available for your plant. As I mentioned, propagations, because phosphorus is important for roots. So you want to have more phosphorus available. If you are transplanting your plant, you want to have more phosphorus available, because what happens when we transplant a plant? We are stressing that plant out by playing with the roots. 9 times out of 10, we're playing with the roots. Okay. Not very often. You're going to take a plant out of a pot and just stick it in another pot with new dirt around it. You're going to take some of that older dirt off. You should take some of that older dirt off. We talked about that last week when we talked about substrates, in that your soil or your soilless mixes, other than leca or pon, they break down over time and they have to be refreshed anyway. Oh yeah, especially if it's an allocation, because you're looking for corms. That's a very good point too. So anytime you have a plant that's kind of in a stressed condition or potential stress condition, oh, thank you, Green and Leafy, I appreciate you. Anytime you have a plant that's in a stressed condition, maybe you're putting it in a new pot. How many of you buy plants on this app? I do, and other apps too. after it has acclimated to my home environment and I have quarantined it for however long I'm quarantining it for, I'm going to repot it. Well, it's already been stressed from shipping. I know, right? I'm guilty. It's already been stressed from shipping. It's been sitting in an environment that it's not used to. And now we're going to repot it and we're going to play with those roots. So yeah, phosphorus becomes an important element. Okay. And again, flowering, anything that's a flowering plant like Hoya, orchids, your outside plants, your beautiful bushes and things like that. If you want them to bloom better and or more frequently, phosphorus is the key there. How many of you have hard water? We have hard water down here. It's like, whoo, really hard. If you have hard water. If you have hard water, be careful with the amount of phosphorus. Yeah, we did talk about water last week, and you can see that on our YouTube channel. Okay, but yeah, hard water, it's already got a lot of minerals and salts and things like that. Absolutely. So you want to be careful especially how much phosphorus, because too much phosphorus is going to be a potential problem for your plant down the road. But also, phosphorus is very sensitive to pH. Very sensitive to pH. How many of you test the pH of your water before you actually use it to water your plants? You do not. Nope. 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 Okay. To water your plants. What do you mean? What is my pH meter again? You can get any pH meter on Amazon. There's one for like, 15, 20 bucks. Okay. Aeroponics and hydroponics or semi-hydroponics. Every time I go to put a new plant in LECA or change the nutrient solution, I do every time, because LECA especially does not have anything in it. Yeah. I do. And actually I can bring it up on Amazon and show you the one that I got. Phosphorus. Now, if I'm watering my other house plants, I don't pH test my water. Should I? Yes. Because it wasn't until just recently that I discovered that our water is super hard. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, but you have to be kind of careful. Like, okay, so if your pH is off, would we need to, if we use distilled water or boil your water? So boiling your water doesn't do anything for the nutrients or the minerals. It does not remove them at all. Okay, let me answer the pH meter one first and show you which one that was, and then I'll show you something else that you can do. So distilled water is perfect. Distilled water is essentially RO water. Okay. Set it up for 24 hours so it gets rid of it's not going to get rid of the calcium. The calcium's still going to be there. The only thing that sitting it out for 24 hours does is remove chlorine. It does not remove chloramine. The only thing that will do that is chloramine remover. There's a couple different ones. You can get anything. Like here's one. It's just a digital pH meter, and it looks something like that. It's a digital pH meter. Yeah, chlorine. Since they forced us to switch to Dubai from Walmart, is terrible. Yeah, it will. It's terrible. So I mean, I've got horrible tap water. I live near an island. Let me just show you that again. And this one is, you can just search for digital pH test meter and it'll bring up something like this. And this one is this one was a little more expensive because it comes with different test kit, but this one's like 30 bucks. You can get cheaper ones. Okay. But they'll look kind of like that. We have terrible water because we live near an island. It's a tourist town, so they put a lot of extra stuff in here, including chlorine and stuff. You're welcome. So what I have always done is I just use fish tank chloramine remover. A couple of drops will do you, and it takes care of it. And then I add my nutrients, and I just test my pH when I need to, which I don't for my regular houseplants with my regular fertilizer. I don't. With my leca, I started out using my regular tap water, and after about 2 weeks or so, I noticed that some of my plants were doing okay. Some of them were doing meh. So I switched over to distilled water. Now, distilled water has absolutely nothing in it. We used to boil water when you made up baby milk. Oh, yeah. You still boil your water to sterilize or sanitize, because boiling water does not sterilize, it only sanitizes. But yeah, you boil your water to sanitize, not to remove elements. It doesn't remove anything other than potential bacteria and things like that. But anyway, so distilled water has nothing in it. And leca plants that are in leca need to have nutrients added to the leca water. So I started switching over to using distilled water for my leca plants, and everybody is way, way happier. So the other thing is that you can get, if you have really terrible water, you can buy distilled water, rainwater. Okay, I don't know if K-Dub is in here or not yet, but I was in K-Dub's show the other day, and she said something about reading an article. And if she's in here, I'll get her to explain that a little bit better. Or maybe you guys, next time you're in her show, you can ask K-Dub to explain that a little bit more. But she said something about reading an article where I do too. Rainwater. Oh, what did she say? Was it mealybugs or spider mites or something? But they were, there you are. There you are. All right, K-Dub. We're talking about water. What was the article? Good morning. What was the article that you read or came across talking about rainwater and the pests that were in the rainwater? Was it spider mites or was it mealybugs or something else? So yeah, I'll use rainwater on our outside plants, but I don't use rainwater on my inside plants. There's no way in heck I'm going to do that. No way in heck. Happy belated birthday, spider mites. See, isn't that crazy? Spider mites. Dang it. Okay. There's another, if you have really terrible water, and I'm actually going to invest in this because distilled water here costs about, I don't know, $1.50 a gallon. And if you're using a lot of distilled water, that adds up, right? There is something that you can get. It is called Zero Water. Zero Water. It's a filtration system. Okay, it's called Zero Water. This is the big one. It's like a 2-gallon one. It removes everything. This is not the same as a Brita. Brita only removes the stuff that makes water taste bad. This removes everything. Everything. So it makes it basically go down to nothing. It's basically making it into distilled water. It is called Zero Water. Zero Water. This is the big one. This is the one that I'm going to eventually get. This is a 2-gallon one. And it's $45. And they have smaller ones. But the amount of water I go through, oh, I'm glad. The amount of water we go through here is crazy. And this makes it drinkable as well, so it's not going to taste nasty. But for your plants, this is almost like buying distilled water. So it depends, do a cost analysis. How much distilled water would you buy versus how many gallons can you make with this? And then the filters depends on the research I've done on it says It just depends on how hard your water is as to how quickly you go through the filters. So it's called zero water. Give it a shot. But Brita does not do the same thing. Okay. So, all right. So pH is important when it comes to phosphorus. We were talking about pH and phosphorus. And we were saying that virtually nobody checks their pH. Okay. So here's the thing. Phosphorus is very sensitive to the pH. So if you have a plant that is in a soil mix, the pH needs to be around anywhere between 6.0 and 6.8 for phosphorus. Yes, acid or base. Yes. Your soil needs to be between 6.0 and 6.8 in order for phosphorus to be made available for your plant. If you're using a soil-less medium, your pH needs to be between 5.8 and 6.5. 5.8 and 6.5, which that's perfect. And then LECA or hydroponics, semi-hydroponics, aeroponics, your pH, in order for phosphorus to be available for your plant, the pH has to be between 5.5 and 6.2. Most of our house plants do great right around 6.0. So that's what everything it should be. I just say 6.0 for everything. Okay. So again, if you are transplanting a plant, if you're trying to grow new roots, that's what you want phosphorus for. Okay. Yeah, and be very careful. If you have hard water, be very careful on the amount of phosphorus because you've already got really hard water. So I use something called, it's a digital pH tester. You can just search Amazon for a digital pH tester. It's going to look something like that. I got to hold it. It might distill water if you bring your own container. Oh, hey, that's kind of cool. Yeah, we only have Walmart here. So, yeah. So that's why I'm thinking, because I thought, okay, well, I can get those like big 5-gallon drinking water jugs, but then I can't lift them. So that's when I came across the zero water, doing some research. I know, right? Because I think in the long run, because I'm transferring all of my plants to LECA, and you do have to change out the nutrient solutions. So that's a lot of water to use, and also a lot of plastic containers that are going to be left around. So if I use the zero water filter, and then I can just refill, if I just refill those jugs, then I'm saving the planet too from plastics. So, okay. All right, let's talk about potassium because that's the last one of the NPK. Okay, so we've talked about nitrogen is for green growth. We've talked about phosphorus is for the roots. What do you think potassium is for? What do you think potassium is for in a plant? And actually, potassium is the same thing for us as humans. Nope, that's flowering is your phosphorus. Potassium is important for water balance and plant immunity. If you don't have the proper balance of potassium, your plant is going to be more subjected to diseases and pests. It's very important for water transport, and you water your plant. Okay, the water goes into the roots. I'm going to do just basic thing here. The water goes into the roots. The roots soak up that water, which has all the nutrients in it. But that water then moves up through the stems and to the leaves. And then guess what happens? Something called transpiration, which we've talked about before, which is where the plant breathes, just like we do, but like we breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide, the plant is exactly the opposite. the plant is going to take carbon dioxide from the air through its leaves and put out oxygen through its leaves. So that's where that water transport comes in, because they're going to be pushing out that oxygen that they're, trying to get rid of, essentially. Okay. Even though your roots need oxygen, your leaves don't. They need carbon dioxide. So plants are very complicated and cool creatures, if you want to call them a creature. But it's necessary. Water balance, potassium is necessary for that water balance. Potassium is necessary to help the plant be able to move the water like it's supposed to. So what might be a sign that you don't have enough potassium? Yellowing leaves, yellowing on the leaf edges in particular. You've seen this happen where you have a leaf that's not, so if it's completely pale yellow, that's nitrogen. We talked about that already. If it's just yellow around the edges, that's a potassium deficiency. If there's brown, crispy edges, that's potassium. If the stems are weak, you've got a plant that's supposed to be completely upright like this, and it's like, okay, that's a potassium deficiency. Potassium is for water. Water is for strength. Okay, think about it. When you don't water your plant and it gets all droopy, it doesn't have water in it, right? You give that plant water and it stands back up straight again, which that's putting this plant under stress, and we talked about that last week. But so weak stems are a sign of potassium deficiency. If your leaves curl, or if they look dull, if they're supposed to look, kind of shiny and bright and pretty, like my Monstera is struggling right now badly. But anyway, if they look dull, if they look not pretty like they're supposed to, that's most likely water balance. Not necessarily that you have, not necessary. Yes, it doesn't contain it. Yes, it just from runoff. Yes. Water is important for all of that stuff. Okay. Yes, mosquito bits. Yep. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Rainwater causes spider. No, rainwater doesn't cause it. Okay, so the numbers. When you look at your fertilizer, there are 3 numbers. Okay. There's like 1-1-1. That means there's 1 part nitrogen to 1 part potassium, or 1 part phosphorus to 1 part potassium. Okay. They're all equal. If you do, a look at something and it's a 3-1-2, there's 3 parts nitrogen to 1 part phosphorus to 2 parts potassium. Okay. So just think of it, try and remember, it's always NPK. Nitrogen, green growth; phosphorus, roots; potassium, water balance. Okay. So if I had a fertilizer that was, say, a 3-1-2 ratio, 6-4, I can't math, 12-3-8, something like that. I'm very high in nitrogen, right? And I don't want to use that at full strength on what kind of plants? I don't want to use high nitrogen at full strength on what kind of plants? Variegated. Yay. Just making sure everybody's still awake. Yes, so you got to be careful. Okay, and we're going to talk about different fertilizing strategies too. Okay, if you need something that you've got a flowering plant like a Hoya, an orchid, you've got a hibiscus bush, something like that, you want to have more phosphorus. So you want the middle number to be a little bit higher. Okay, so just if you can just remember, nitrogen is for the green growth, phosphorus is for roots and blooms, and then potassium is for water balance. Okay, and basically disease resistance and stuff like that. But, okay, Just keep that all in mind. And that will help you to differentiate from all of those different things out there. You can go, okay, I've got a totally green plant. I can get this fertilizer. I've got a variegated plant. I can get this fertilizer, but I need to be careful how much I give it. Okay. Now, there are secondary nutrients as well, and we're not going to go into all of them, but there's secondary nutrients that a plant needs. A plant needs calcium, a plant needs magnesium, a plant needs sulfur, and then there's micronutrients as well. There's iron, zinc, boron, all those different nutrients, secondary nutrients or trace elements, micronutrients. Those are all important for different parts of the plant. Calcium and magnesium are probably the two most important as far as secondary nutrients or micronutrients. They're not really micronutrients. They're just secondary. They're big nutrients. They're macronutrients like NPK, but they're not as important. They're still very, very important. Okay. Calcium is important for your cell wall strength of your plants. It's important for new growth. And then magnesium is important for chlorophyll production. So when you're using something like distilled water or filtered water, it's not going to have calcium or magnesium in it at all. So you've got to be able to add that calcium magnesium supplement. So keep that in mind. There's other, copper, zinc, boron. There's other minor, what we call micronutrients or trace elements that are important in your plant. But the three big ones are NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And then your other important ones, but not as important, are calcium and magnesium. Because without those, your plant's not going to do anything either. Okay? All right. So, types of fertilizer. There's lots of different types of fertilizer, right? There's liquid fertilizer. There's slow release granules. There's fish poop. There's worm castings. And then there's also aeroponic, hydroponic, semi-hydroponic nutrients. Okay. So what's the difference and what's better than one? There's nothing that's better than another. If you love using liquid fertilizer in all of your plants, cool. If you like using the slow release granules in your plants, cool. Okay. It doesn't matter. It's a matter of convenience. Okay. Now, what's the difference? So liquid fertilizer, it's fast acting. It's really easy to adjust your dosage, and it is best for most of your houseplants. If you don't buy a liquid, then you can make a liquid by adding the nutrients, the powdered form. Like I use Big Green Leaves. That's my favorite fertilizer for my houseplants. It's called Big Green Leaves. It's a powder, and I mix it into my water, and I just mix it really well, and then it becomes a liquid fertilizer. Okay. Slow release granules. They're little granules that you sprinkle into your soil or mix into your soil. They usually last for up to 3 months. To be honest with you, I don't use slow release granules at all, other than on my outside plants. We'll fertilize our citrus trees and stuff like that. We'll use the slow release granules. I do not use slow release granules on my houseplants because I want to have more control. And if I have put slow release granules that last for up to 3 months in my soil, and I discover, oh my gosh, I've got a nitrogen problem or I've got a calcium problem or something like that, I can't do anything to that plant without risking more fertilizer going in and more nutrients going in and causing an even worse problem. So I make my own concoction. I use Big Green Leaves. You can use any fertilizer you want. If Miracle-Gro is the only thing that you can afford, use Miracle-Gro. It's a very nice balanced fertilizer. It's fine, and you can mix it in your water. Okay. Fish tank water is perfectly fine. It's going to have fish poo in it, which fish poo is good. Worm castings are good because they basically refresh the microorganisms that are in the soil. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with using fish poo. Absolutely nothing wrong with using fish poo. If you're using aquarium water or whatever, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people use that religiously without anything else, and it's perfect. Now, LECA, hydroponics, aeroponics, that all has to be a very specific not science, but specific mixture of different nutrients at a specific pH. So that is a little bit more complicated. I do have on YouTube, I did 2 weeks ago, I did a LECA class, and I do have a LECA kit if you're interested in switching over to LECA or trying to see if LECA works for you. I do have a LECA kit that will give you enough LECA and nutrients for several plants. Well, LECA for at least 2 plants and nutrients for several plants so that you can try it and see it for yourself. We've got that in the Buy It Now in the shop. So it doesn't matter what type of fertilizer you use as far as liquid, slow release, fish poo, etc. What matters is, are you doing it on a regular basis? Are you feeding at the proper strength? Okay, so now when it comes to general house plants, which that's what we're talking about here most of the time is general house plants, I feed all year long. But I also live in very, very South Texas where it's summertime here almost 365 days a year, except for maybe like 2 weeks out of the year. So I fertilize every time I water, and I fertilize at quarter strength. So for example, I think the big green leaves that I use says like 2 scoops per gallon. I basically use a half of a scoop, which is a quarter strength, every time I water. It's called the weekly method. So week, W-E-A-K, weekly, W-E-E-K. The weekly method is where you are watering. Every time you water, you are feeding your plant. You're giving it. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we're down near South Padre. So you feed every time. And I started feeding mine every time at quarter or half strength. And I've only in the past 6 months or so gone to quarter strength just because of doing more research on nutrients myself. But I did it mostly out of convenience because I can't remember, hey, you got fertilized yesterday or you get fertilized next week. I can't remember that. So Super Thrive Pro, I was using a teaspoon, cut it back. I'm using only half a teaspoon because, yeah, half a teaspoon, absolutely. And with your variegated plants, I would cut it back even to a quarter teaspoon. Okay. Now, I haven't checked the labeling on Super Thrive Pro in a long time, so just check the NPK levels and the calcium, magnesium levels and make sure that it's got all that stuff in it. I know it does, but just make sure that it's a good balanced one. You're not telling South Padre. Aw, favorite place in the world. Aw, live in Wisconsin should be even less than a quarter. What it says for no. But in Wisconsin, what I would do is in the fall winter, I would you could either reduce it or you can just stop fertilizing completely for your like late fall, winter into early spring, and then you can start bringing back. Not full strength, but if you're going to do it every watering, I would do at least half strength. So it's up to you. If you want to drop it down to say 1/8 of a strength, so instead of using a teaspoon, you use 1/8 of a teaspoon every time you water, even in the winter, that's okay. Colder parts of the climate, the plants do go into a dormancy. So a lot of times you'll notice your growth slows or sometimes even stops. It's still healthy. It's still, a healthy, thriving plant. But a lot of times it's stalled because it just knows that it's wintertime. So all you're going to do is just, plain water at that point. Or you could reduce it down to say 1/8 of the strength and then bump it up once spring comes back in. Yeah. Minnesota don't fertilize in the winter, occasionally fertilize once in a month. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You don't have to. You don't have to. Because for most of you that live in a much colder climate, those plants are going to go into a dormancy. They're going to go into a dormancy. So, yeah, you've got to kind of know what your plant requires. Like, I don't grow alocasia, but my understanding of alocasia is that they are heavy feeders. They need a lot of calcium and magnesium. They don't like to starve. So, but philodendrons and pothos, syndapsis, you can get away with feeding it like 1/4, 1/8 strength and be just perfectly fine. Okay. So let's talk about deficiency symptoms, because somebody asked that question earlier and I said we were going to get to it. Yeah, it will. And you can, if you wind up doing that, if you catch it, just flush that plant, flush it. Take it under your sink or whatever. Even if it has chlorine in it, a little bit of chlorine in the plant is not going to be as bad as having too much fertilizer. So you can flush it, and then do a final flush with RO water or distilled water, etc. That will usually help to save the plant. So you can combine liquid dirt, Super Thrive, and your Miracle-Gro fertilizer, bottom water, all that together. Okay, that is a really great question. I don't know what the NPK is of liquid dirt, Super Thrive, or Miracle-Gro. I know that Miracle-Gro is a very balanced fertilizer, but yeah, I think you're doing a lot of overkill. I would pick one that has a good balance of the NPK and then add to it from there. Like I use Big Green Leaves, but with the Big Green Leaves, the only things I add to that would be like my mycorrhiza to feed my roots, or my beneficial microbes to feed the roots and refresh the soil. And then pest control. That's really all I do. My favorite fertilizer. I'm those of you, I know there are people out there that love liquid dirt. I know there are people out there that have used Super Thrive. I'm telling you, you should try Big Green Leaves. Look it up on Amazon. It's Big Green Leaves. I think it's made by TPS. Is it made by TPS? I'll show you the picture. Super Thrive is fine. You just have to make sure. Here, you know what? Let's look this up. Hold on a second. Super Thrive. Oh my gosh. I can't spell. Super Thrive Foliage Pro. Okay, so this has, let's take a look at the label here. Super Thrive. All right, so this is Super Thrive Foliage Pro. Okay, take a look at this label and tell me what you notice. Super Thrive Foliage Pro. I know everybody uses this, but look at this. Look at the label and tell me what you see. It's not the Pro, so we're not, okay, so what, I know a lot of people use, oops, hold on. I know a lot of people use this one, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. Yeah, the nutrients are way like non-existent. So this is what you want to look for. So let me pull up Super Thrive Pro. Super Thrive Foliage Pro. Okay, here is Foliage Pro. Okay, so here's Foliage Pro. It's a 936. So it's basically a 312, which is perfectly fine for general houseplants. Keep in mind, however, it's high in nitrogen. So it's 3 parts nitrogen to 1 part phosphorus and 2 parts potassium. So if you have variegated plants, make sure you are only using this at maybe an 1/8 to 1/4 strength. I would not use it. Now, but that's my personal preference. I also think this is way expensive compared to some of the other stuff out there. I mean, okay, 1 quart, $23.89. That's really not too bad, I guess. But let me find the big green leaves. Big green leaves fertilizer. This is what I use, and it lasts me a long time. It's a powder. It also has sea kelp in it, and it is called Big Green Leaves for a reason. Okay, it's called Big Green Leaves for a reason. It is a 12-4-8, so it's high in nitrogen. It's called Big Green Leaves for a reason. This is great if you don't have a variegated plant. When I use it in my variegated plants, I use this at 1/8 of a strength. And but my variegated plants are under a super high amount of light. So this stuff is really good. I absolutely love it. It lasts forever. It's only $24 for a big bag, and it lasts forever. But it also has sea kelp in it, so that adds some other good stuff in it too. But you can pretty much use anything. Just remember to look at that. Okay, look at the NPK level in particular, and then you can also look at the back of your packaging and see if it has other stuff in it. Which it doesn't show me a picture of the back of the package on. Yes, it does. So this, my Big Green Leaves, it's got, of course, nitrogen, phosphorus, etc. It does have magnesium, boron, copper, iron, manganese, zinc. It also contains beneficial substances, which is the kelp. And kelp this is another reason why I love this stuff, is because kelp is necessary to feed the microbes that are in your soil. Okay? So that's another reason why I use it, is it helps to refresh the soil too. So you can use anything you want. Just use something. Yes. Yes, silica gold. I always use silica. I use silica gold in my regular plants, and then I use Armor C in my hydroponic plants, in my LECA plants, because it depends on what the instructions say. The silica gold, I believe, is 2 teaspoons per gallon, and so I believe 1 teaspoon per gallon. I do that at half strength. Yeah, the fish, we were just talking about fish poo. Fish poo is fine because it feeds the soil. It feeds the soil. All right. And then we're talking about deficiencies next. So when your plant has a potential deficiency, 9 times out of 10, it's not really a deficiency. 9 times out of 10 is going to be either the environment is off or the roots. Is it good for LECA and pond? Fish poo? No. Don't do fish poo in your LECA. No, don't do fish poo in your LECA. Okay, let me explain why. So fish poo has, and you might not be able to see it, but it has little micro pieces of fish poo. Okay. If you can filter it somehow, like maybe with some cheesecloth or something to get the micro pieces of fish poo out, you're still left with the benefits of the fish poo in the water. But what's going to happen is the little bits and pieces of fish poo are going to clog your LECA pores or your pond pores, and they're not going to be able to wick up water. So you have to, it is a hydroponic or a semi-hydroponic environment, so you have to use semi-hydroponic or hydroponic nutrients. Okay. Yeah, we talked about soil substrates last week, but yeah. So yeah, and I do have in the shop, I've got the LECA kit. It's a beginner kit, and it has enough LECA for 2 plants, and then it has enough nutrients for 5 or 6 waterings, 5 or 6 nutrient changes, or additional plants, and it'll give you an idea of whether you want to move to LECA or not. And I can pin that here in a little bit. But anyway, so most deficiencies that we have, we want to rule out that is it really a deficiency, or is it a problem with my environment? Maybe I don't have enough humidity in the environment. Maybe I've got root rot or something like that. So we want to rule that stuff out first. Because like overwatering or root rot causes yellowing leaves. It causes the leaves to drop. Well, so does nutrient deficiencies. But the difference is going to be, okay, let's look at those roots. Do we have mushy roots? Do we have dying roots? Then it's not a nutrient deficiency in most cases. Underwatering. If we don't water our plants enough, they're gonna droop. They're gonna have curling leaves. Let's rule out that we are not underwatering our plant first, because if you are underwatering, you should water the plant, and then within a day or so, it should have bounced back to being pretty again. If it's still droopy after a day or two, then you have a nutrient issue. If you have very pale leaves coming in, or if you've got a plant where the nodes get longer with each new leaf, you've got here's a node, and then with each new leaf, the node gets longer and longer. That's usually a nutrient deficiency, but that's also a low light problem. So make sure you've got good quality lighting. If you see that there is a white crust on the top of your LECA, on top of your pond, on top of your soil, that is salt and mineral buildup. Flush that plant, okay? And then there's also the issue with the wrong pH. So you have to check all those things first. And then once you know that all of those things are good, your watering is correct, your pH is good, your light is good, etc., then you can go with nutrient deficiencies and start looking at that. So, okay, nitrogen. If you have a nitrogen deficiency, bent leaves even after watering, are you sure it's not a curly spider? It's not a curly spider. So, I mean, do you mean like curved, or do you mean like literally bent? Because I don't know. I appreciate you guys for saying that. It absolutely humid. That's what I was going to say, is maybe some humidity. And, it might just be that it's a super heavy plant. I would almost think that okay, remember what part of the plant is responsible for droopy leaves? Or not what part of the plant, what nutrient is responsible. If I've got a plant that's supposed to be standing up like this and now it's droopy, what do you think is the issue? And this might be the same case, is maybe it's not so much water as it's a potassium deficiency. So check your fertilizer. Do you feed your plants? All right. So nitrogen deficiency. If you have a uniform yellowing, no, I do not. Clonex is for propagation. It's not for regular plants. Clonex is not for that. Yeah. If you have a uniform yellowing on older leaves, if the whole leaf fades, it's not patchy. You don't have yellow here, green here, yellow here. It's the whole leaf fades. If the plant has slowed down, no, you're good. Then you have a nitrogen deficiency. It's going to happen on older leaves first. Okay? So keep that in mind. They're going to be like a pale yellow. Phosphorus deficiency, your leaves are going to look dull. They're going to have maybe a bluish discoloration. Now, don't confuse that with like a Cebu blue pothos that has a bluish discoloration. They're going to literally look like they're a bluish discoloration. The underside of the leaves or the stems could be red or purplish, and they're not supposed to be. The growth is stunted. That's probably a phosphorus deficiency. And then potassium, would be the yellow edges, the browning tips. It happens again on older leaves first, and then you have the weak stems where it's just kind of droopy and it's just weak. All right. I mentioned calcium and magnesium are really important. Magnesium in particular, if you've got a magnesium deficiency, you will see yellowing leaves, but the veins of the leaf will still be green. It's crazy. That's a magnesium deficiency. And yeah. Calcium deficiency, twisted, deformed leaves. Leaves are stuck. They won't open. Calcium deficiency. Somebody asked about that earlier, about their leaves being kind of stuck and not opening. That's a calcium deficiency. Okay. We mentioned overwatering, not overwatering, but over fertilizing, and you get that salt buildup. You have to flush, and you should be flushing your plants at least every couple of months. I usually will flush mine about every 2 to 3 months. You should probably do it more frequently, but if you've got a lot of plants like I do, doing it every month is crazy. But you've got to flush out those, plain water. And you can even take it to your sink. If you've got terrible water, you can even take it to your sink and flush it for, a minute or so, and then do a final flush with like your distilled water or what have you, if you're concerned about, because then it'll flush all of the chemicals and stuff out of your tap water out. But you want to flush it periodically. It's basically giving a good start over for your plant. Okay. And the reason you have to do that is, and especially if you're like me, where you are watering or fertilizing every time you water, you're going to get that mineral buildup. And just take a look at your soil. If the top of your soil or your leca looks crusty, looks like a white crusty, then it's time to flush. If a month has gone by and it still looks good, you don't have to flush it. But definitely that's a good sign, is that it's time to flush. Okay. So what works for me is what I refer to as the weekly method, WEAK, the weekly method, where depending on the time of year and where you are located, like down here being in South Texas, I water at quarter strength every time I water. You're using terracotta pots. Terracotta pots are terrible for houseplants. Are you using like an inner like plastic pot? Because a terracotta pot is going to literally suck all of the water and nutrients out of your plant. They're all outside in Florida. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't use terracotta pots except for succulents and stuff like that. We don't have many at all. But terracotta part. I mean, if you think about what terracotta, it's a very porous material. So anything that you put into it, it's going to literally suck right out. So you might want to think about that with your terracotta, especially if you're having issues with any of your plants. You can still use the terracotta pots, but use them as a decorative pot instead of an actual planting pot. So, yeah. But anyway, and that is pretty much it. I will leave, we'll end this and then we'll open it up for questions. Try to remember less is more. It's better to feed your plant less than full strength, half strength, etc. As long as you're feeding it something. Feed during the growth period. So that would be like spring, summer for most of you. I can feed all year long. Florida, we can feed pretty much all year long. Flush it occasionally. Once. Oh, thank you, Kubuk. I appreciate that. Flush it occasionally because it needs to be flushed. Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, is right before spring. Use a complete fertilizer. If you're using something that isn't a complete fertilizer, add some different nutrients to it. Like, maybe it doesn't have calcium and magnesium, so add some CalMag to it. And then, check your, thank you, Jill. I appreciate you. Check your plant. Alocasias, heavy feeders. Cactus, not so much. So make sure you know what kind of plant you have and whether it is a heavy feeder or not. And you'll be able to tell. You can adjust, nutrient. Yeah, Clonex is for propagation, not for plant watering. It's only for propagating your plants and getting new roots. That's it. I wouldn't use it yeah, you're welcome. I wouldn't use it any other time. That's just a waste. I mean, you can, but you don't need to. Now, if you've got like a tiny plant that you just bought and you're repotting it, transplanting it, you can water it with some Clonex at that point, just that one or maybe one or two waterings, and that will help to boost the root growth in that new plant. But I wouldn't use it every single time. You're welcome. I appreciate you. Yeah, guys, definitely. Tips are greatly appreciated. Thank you, guys. If you have gotten anything out of today's session or the past sessions, I do spend quite a bit of time putting these sessions together. So let's open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions about nutrients, what to use? What to use is kind of, up to you what you want to use. Me too. I learn all the time. So I believe, if I'm not, it's been a minute since I looked at the instructions, but I believe it says for the big green leaves is, I want to say it's 1 scoop per gallon. So I do a 1/4 scoop per gallon or a 1/2 scoop per gallon. I do quarter strength. You got to look at the manufacturer's instructions and say, okay, if it's saying, 2 scoops, because it comes a little scooper. If you click on my username at the top, oh, that's a great question. Hold on one second. If you click on my username at the top, it should have for like tip or boost or something like that. And maybe somebody can let her know. Besides low values, it's a way to know if a brand just isn't a quality product. Oh, that's a good one. See, you've seen people just use spray for the top of the soil for feeding. No, a spray is not. Oh, thank you guys so much. A spray is not going to get down into the roots. It's just going to be on the top. Now, there is a foliar spray that you can get, and I don't know. I had just learned about a foliar spray. So I'm trying it out on a couple of plants to see if it helps. And so far I haven't seen anything at all, any difference. So I think it's a waste of money to do a foliar spray. You got to try and remember the anatomy of a plant. You've got your leaves and stems at the top, and you've got your roots. When you water, you're watering into the soil. The roots are what's going to soak up those nutrients and that water and send it to the rest of the plant. Yeah. Stick to either bottom watering or watering in the actual soil and letting it run out. Either one. Has a foam and liquid pump fertilizers. Oh my God. Yes. Those are awful. In my opinion, those are awful. I'm not a fan of Miracle-Gro to begin with. It's fine. Like I said, if you only can afford Miracle-Gro, at least you're feeding your plant something. But I don't like Miracle-Gro because I just don't. It's a good balanced fertilizer, and it's great if you're a beginning houseplant person, or I'll use it on my outside plants all the time because, it's fertilizer, and outside plant fertilizers are expensive because we've got so many. But for my plants, my house plants, I prefer to have a little bit more control. And to me, just using Miracle-Gro doesn't give me that control. And I also have found issues with it not dissolving very well. And yeah, the stuff that you can put on top of the soil, I used to try that with my African violets, and I can't tell you how many African violets I killed with that stuff because you get all this stuff concentrated because it says, oh, just squirt it on the soil. Well, now it's all concentrated in one area, and it's not feeding those roots, which the roots have to be fed in order to feed the rest of the plant. So that's just my opinion. I am not a god or a goddess, but that's just my opinion. You guys try out different things. It's like do experiments. It's like when I decided to switch to leca, I took a plant, I split it in half, I put half back in a soilless mix and half in leca because I wanted to see if there was a visible difference, and there is a visible difference. For me, there is, and that's why I am in the process now of switching all of my plants over to leca. My great aunt took banana peels for her plants. Yes. Okay. What is the primary nutrient in bananas? Primary nutrients for in bananas. Nope. Potassium. Potassium. What is potassium important for? What do we need potassium for? Water balance. Water balance. Water movement through. It's okay. Water balance. Yes, it is important for that too. Oh my gosh. Yes, please continue. I need some more coffee too, but it's important for water balance. Yes, banana peels. Throw a banana peel out in your trees, in your bushes. You can make banana water and use that to water some of your house plants as well. But just remember, it's going to be potassium and have pretty much only potassium in it. So don't use it full strength. Use banana water, put it on once in a while, or mix it in with some of your nutrient water. Yes, don't forget you can rewatch it. Does your fish poop have potassium? That's a great question, and I doubt it. I think I'm not sure. We would need to research that a little bit. We'll GTS that. Hold on. Let's GTS it together. Y'all know what GTS. If you go up into my show notes and copy and paste my link tree, it will have all my links: Instagram, YouTube, Amazon recommended products, etc. Y'all know what GTS means, right? Google that shit. Okay. What nutrients does fish poop have? Let's learn together, because I know there's a lot of you that use fish poop. I don't, because I don't have fish. And I don't like the smell of most of it that you can buy. But what nutrients fish poop? Okay, fish poop have. Okay. So it says, no, I want to know what. Okay. So according to the Aquatic Plant Society, let's see. I like looking at sites like that, because I figure if it's like, not just like Wikipedia or something, that it's a good site. Let's see. Nitrate, which breakdown from ammonia. Let's see. Well, this is not even giving us anything. Okay, this one says fish poop does not provide balanced nutrients. It's typically rich in nitrate and phosphate, so nitrogen and phosphorus, but it's short of potassium, and it's also short on like iron and stuff like that. So you also have to make sure that your water has adequate calcium and magnesium. And you might check as well if you're using like fish poop. Are you like buying it, or are you using it from your fish tanks and stuff like that? I'm curious now. Hold on, I gotta scroll back up. Fish poop and banana water. Over watering period brings on the gnats because your soil is moist. Gotta love autocorrect. I tell you, every time I try to write syndapsis, it changes it to scandalous. So I wonder if you could contact, like, do you have like an agriculture department where you are? I'm sure you have an agriculture department, but like an extension office or something like that. Maybe check with them, because sometimes there are, like, I know when we were in Tulsa, there was at Tulsa Community College, actually, there was a horticulture program, and they actually offered like free soil testing and stuff like that, because the people in the classes had to learn how to do it, so they would offer like free stuff like that. So you might contact maybe the local agriculture office or your extension office or something like that and see if maybe they have more information. The Clonex solution is a game changer. It really is. It really is. You get no gnats in the plants that I buy from you because the soil-less mix can remain too wet. So if it's remaining too wet, you need to let it dry out more. The top 1 to 2 inches of your plant should be pretty much dry before you water it. You can get a moisture meter. You can get a moisture meter that you can literally poke into the plant and see if it's wet or dry. That helps too. But yeah, the gnats are awesome. No root rot or anything. Oh yeah, the soilless. Oh, I get you now. Okay, I think I'm with you now. Yeah, that is switching to. I switched to a soilless mix about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, and now I'm in the process of switching all of my pothos, all of my Scindapsus, and eventually I'll do some of my philodendrons into LECA. So, all right, what other questions do we have for today? Because we're coming up on 2 hours, almost 2 hours. So, yeah, it's a very long project, but yeah, straight LECA with nutrients. Mm-hmm. Nope, pothos I don't. My pothos have been doing super well, just going right in, because pothos are very easy to root anyway in water. I probably should have done the long method with my Monstera constellation, but I didn't. And yeah, she looks like she's struggling a little bit, but she looked like she was struggling beforehand. But yeah. And that's the thing. Hey, Kat. When you go to switch over to anything different, whether it's LECA, PON, whatever, it's always scary. So, I would definitely think about, if you're scared about it, then I would follow the LECA Queen's advice and do the long method, which is go ahead and clean off the roots and put it in water and let it be in water, and then add some Clonex solution to that water. Because it will help to force those roots to form. And once you see that you've got some water roots, then you can go ahead and put it in the LECA. So yeah, or, if you've got maybe a non-expensive alocasia that you just want to try and see how it does. Yeah, it will probably, for the first few days, you'll get a little bit of a shock. But here's the thing. Here's one of the things that I have learned is I do things a little bit differently than LECA Queen, kind of a little bit differently. But one of the things that I learned with LECA is, if I put it in the nutrient solution and in LECA, and after, say, a week, it looks like it's struggling, or in the first few days, it's going to look like it's struggling. If it doesn't perk back up within a week, I'm going to take and completely empty out that nutrient solution. I'm going to keep it in the LECA, but I'm going to just put plain water in it with Clonex solution and let it recuperate with just water. And that way it will help it to build those roots a little bit better, and it won't be subjected to, not only am I in a completely different medium right now, but I'm also being bombarded with nutrients. So sometimes just putting it with plain water a lot of times will help too. So it's a very cool process. If anybody is interested in trying LECA, but you don't know anything about LECA, I'm going to pin this, and then I'm going to put it on a flash sale for you guys in case you want to do this. It comes with absolutely everything that you need. It comes with a little mason jar container. It comes with the net pot. It comes with LECA, enough for two plants. It comes with a pH test kit. It comes with all the nutrients that you need. It comes with step-by-step instructions. Step-by-step instructions. Don't be scared to use it, because I'm telling you, it works great. Benefits of LECA is it's completely soilless. Completely soilless. No gnats. Yeah, if that's working for you, great. Yeah. It's expensive at first. It is cheaper in the long run. With soil or soilless mixes, you have to periodically repot. You have to periodically refresh the soil, so it's expensive in the long run, and it's a pain in the butt in the long run too. With LECA, you can reuse the LECA. You just have to make sure that there's a couple of things where you go wrong with LECA. Number one is you don't clean the LECA. You have to rinse it because it's going to come to you dusty. You have to rinse it. And then you have to soak it for a minimum of 12 to 24 hours. Yeah, you can boil it or you can pour hot boiling water over it and let it soak. Yeah, but you can put it in a pot, cover it with water. It will float a little bit, but cover it with water, put it on your stove, let it boil for about 10 minutes, turn the stove off, let it sit 12 to 24 hours because it's got to soak. If you don't let it soak for 12 to 24 hours, it will not wick properly. It just won't. But yeah, the kit has everything. It has complete it's got I wrote like a 16 or 17 page step-by-step guide on how to do all of it. Plus you can watch my LECA class on YouTube. But that is available. And if you go to switch over to LECA, you have to remember, you can't just put stuff in water and LECA and expect your plant to live because it will die. It will eventually die because water has nothing in it. You have to have nutrients. LECA does not have nutrients. You have to feed your plant. And you have to use hydroponic nutrients. You have to. Because if you don't, then the LECA will get clogged and it will not wick up at all. It will stop wicking up. So you go to buy any of these nutrients, everything that you need is going to cost you, the smallest bottle you can get is like a quart. Well, if you go to buy a quart of this stuff and all of these different nutrients, you're going to spend about $200 on all of this. You're going to spend about $200 for all of the nutrients that you need. And if you buy all those and you start using all the LECA and you discover after a week or two, it's just not your jam, most of the time, General Hydroponics will not take back an opened container of nutrient solution because they just won't. So even on Amazon, they just won't. So these are small containers, 2 to 4 mils for every watering. 5 mils is 1 teaspoon. Just so you know, 5 milliliters is 1 teaspoon. And that's per gallon. But yeah, I use 1 teaspoon per gallon every time I water the Silica Gold. But yeah, so my kit has 1 ounce bottles of everything that you need. And then if LECA is your jam, you know exactly what you can buy and you can start buying stuff that you need to continue your LECA journey. I'm telling you guys, my plants are growing better. You should see, I put my Gisenia pothos in LECA. It was kind of struggling. It wasn't putting out new leaves. It is covered with new leaves right now. And it's only been in LECA for 2 weeks. Someone told me an allocation with LECA in the bottom of the pot under the soil. Yes, that is definitely wrong. There is absolutely no reason why to do that other than the LECA is a wicking system. And if you're going to use it as a wicking system, I don't think you need to do that. I think that's kind of an extra expense that you don't need. But the LECA is, I don't understand. I was saying this the other day. I don't understand why people put LECA in their soilless mixes other than they think that it's going to help with moisture retention. I'll answer that question in just a second, Veronica. They think that it's going to help with moisture retention. Well, the way that LECA works is you've got these little LECA balls and they're, you know, either in contact with a cotton wick or they're in contact with water, okay, or nutrient solution. And you've got the bottom layer that is in contact, and then the upper layers are not. But the water moves up. So here's your leca that's attached to the water or the wick, and you've got more leca sitting on top that are in contact here. So these are wicking up water, and then you've got the ones on top of that that wick up water, and the ones on top of that that wick up water. So you know you've got a constant wicking of water. It's going to be more wet at the bottom, and that's why you don't have the water touch the bottom of the pot. I don't use vases. I use self-watering pots. I have a net pot filled with leca and my roots, and then the nutrient solution is in the cache pot. Thank you, Meg. I appreciate you. The nutrient solution is in the cache pot, and I have it go all the way up to touch the bottom of the net pot, but only about 1/3 of the way. You can go to my YouTube channel and watch the LECA class that I did a couple of weeks ago. And I will be doing another one in the future, and I will probably do an aeroponics class in the future. I'm probably going to make those paid classes, though, like cheap, like maybe $15 for the class, 15-20 bucks for the class, because I just, it's a lot to be able to do the education thing. It is a lot. So the tips are greatly appreciated. It really, the LECA class is a lot of work. But yeah, I'm confused why some with LECA use a wick and some don't. Okay, so and that's, yeah, it's the wick. There's several different ways to do this. Okay, you can either put your leca in like a glass bowl, a glass vase, and then you can put your plant in, and then you can put your nutrient solution in. The problem is you have to be able to flush your leca periodically. So doing it in a vase, it makes it really hard. When you do it in a self-watering pot, thank you so much, Friday Girl, I appreciate you. When you put it in a pot with a net pot, the net pot, you have to have, the leca is in the net pot, okay? Let me grab a plant. Hold on a second. Let me just grab one and show you. Okay. So this is what I was talking about. This is the net pot. The outer clear part is what we call the cache pot. Okay. So when you do plants in leca, you're going to put leca in about the bottom 1/3 of the plant, of the pot, of the net pot. Then you're going to put your plant, and then you're going to fill it with more leca. So my roots right now are about right here. I never want my fluid to be above that level, because then that's going to cause root rot. Okay. I also have a wick in here. So what happens is, generally I need to refresh my solution or add some water to top it off. But generally my solution is up a little bit higher. So you see, I put lots of extra holes in here for oxygen, as well as the leca that comes in contact with the nutrient solution can also suck up water, but the wick is what makes the leca suck up the nutrients and the water that it needs. So like down here, if I were to take this plant out right now and look at this leca, the leca down here is going to be really wet, but the leca up here is really kind of dry. Dropping leaves on a pink, drooping leaves on pink chant. Not sure I understand what that means, but anyway. So, and this plant is a pothos. I put this one in LECA. When did I put? I think I put this one in about 2 weeks ago. And I mean, it's doing great. Okay, it's doing great. There's new leaf there. There's new leaf there. There's new leaf there. It's perky. It's beautiful. Pink chant alocasia. Yeah. Is that a variety of alocasia? Is the pink chant? I don't do alocasias at all. But anyway, that's the basic premise. Oh, cool. Okay. That's the basic premise behind this. Now, there are people, if you were to imagine this net pot not being there and this whole thing being filled with leca, you still have nutrient solution with leca, but it has to be below the roots. So I don't like that, because what I can do is if I need to flush this plant, I can just pull this net pot right out and flush my plant. I don't have to worry about tipping the vase or anything like that to help and flush that plant. So for me, leca is really easy. It's a good success. If I have to ever take this plant out, maybe I need to repot it because it's gotten too big, I can reuse this leca. All I have to do is clean it and boil it and let it soak again for 12 to 24 hours. So it really works really, really well, at least so far in my experience. Again, I am at this point just doing my pothos and my Scindapsus. I did put one Monstera in it, but she was struggling anyway. So I was like, what the hell? I'm going to try it. So yeah, I love leca. Absolutely love leca. Yes, it's expensive at first, but once you get the nutrients, it lasts for a very long time. The leca, like I said, can be reused. So it's worth checking out. You should at least, check out my YouTube, or I'll be doing another leca class live here in the near future. But we also have gotten 2 storage units. No, it never expires. Never expires. Nope. The difference between pon and leca, pon is usually 3 different things. It's like zeolite, lava rock, and something else. I can't remember. And sometimes they put fertilizer in it. Pon is a lot. I like leca because leca is more uniform, so I get more air pockets, which is important when you're talking about hydroponics or semi-hydroponics. You want to have a lot more air. Pon has a tendency to be more small, more irregular, and it can actually cause less air pockets than leca. Can I explain my kit? My kit has everything in it that you need except for the plant. It has everything. It has a little mason jar, canister, planter. It comes with the little net pots. It comes with all the nutrients you need. It comes with step-by-step instructions. It comes with a pH test kit. It has everything in that you need except the plant. It has enough leca for 2 plants, and it has 2 net pots, so you can do, get another mason jar or some other vase or something and put the net pot in it. But it has 1 ounce of every nutrient that you're going to need, and again, step-by-step instructions. Okay, and yeah, it's really cool. If you were to get all of the nutrients on your own, you're going to spend over $200. This is a way for you to have kind of an introduction to leca and see if it will work for you before you go out and spend a bunch. So with a regular houseplant in regular soil, yes, and also in leca, yes, you should flush. You can look at the surface of your soil. If you're getting kind of a crusty on it, it needs to be flushed. If you're looking at the surface of your leca, if it's got like a white crust, it's time to flush. Let your plant tell you. And that's another thing too, is if you are finding that you're having to flush like once a month, back down on your nutrients. Yeah. Definitely the leca kit is Try before you buy. Try before you get in. So you're not out a whole bunch, but you've got enough to at least experience. There's enough nutrient solution that will make, because you're only using a certain amount per gallon. So it's enough, probably enough in there for 4 or 5 water changes. So that's plenty enough for you to be able to try it out and see if it's something that would be cool. I love Leca. I've been having fun with the Leca, and like I said, yeah, the Leca is expensive at first, but it's renewable. And so every time if I have a plant that needs to be repotted into a bigger pot, I take that Leca, I rinse it really well, and then I reboil it and reuse it for another plant. No big deal at all. So, all right. What other questions do we have about nutrients, guys? I will be back. We bought 2 storage units, pretty much sight unseen. So I'll be back at noon Central Time doing a storage unit live unboxing. We tried to do it the other night, but it was super windy here and the internet kept going in and out and stuff. So hopefully we won't have that issue today. And I don't know what it is. Our internet always has issues late at night. But so we'll be back at noon doing that. So make sure that you come in. Tomorrow morning, 7:30. And then tomorrow evening, I believe I've got it for 9 or 9:30 p.m. Central, we will be doing plants. So, yeah, no. Yeah, no, it's coming back. And trust me, even if you did miss it, we've got two units. It took us, we had to rent a U-Haul to get all the stuff out. So we had to bring it back because you have to empty storage units. So everything's in the backyard. Everything's in the backyard. We've gone through maybe 10% of the boxes. I have over 1,500 DVDs that we are going to be selling too. Not in this show today, but we do separate ones. But it's been fun. We used to do it years ago. We started doing storage unit auctions back in 2012, and we actually had our own little resale shop for about 4 years doing that. It is an interesting adventure, but there's a lot of trash. There's a lot of work. We were both pretty exhausted last night after, and then Banana Farmer 68 had a show yesterday, a case pack show, so she had to pack up 60 plus boxes. So it's been an interesting weekend here for these 2 old women. But yeah, if you're not doing anything, or if you're working and you want something to listen to, come hang out with me this afternoon. We'll be here around noon again. So bookmark that show. Also, if you want to know when we go live, you can click on this listing and click the little notification flag. And every time we go live, it will let you know that we've gone live. Sometimes bookmarking our shows doesn't work. And plus, we do a lot of pop-ups, especially lately. We've been doing a lot of pop-ups. So, but anyway, thank you guys so much. Thank you for hanging out with me. Next week, we talk about light and grow lights. And then after that, I think we talk about propagation techniques and basic propagation techniques. And then after that is pests. So for I would say I'd love to try and trace you, but I can't see you. But yes, thank you. You're welcome. I appreciate you coming in. You guys are awesome. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know everything. I'm learning sometimes right along with you guys, but I do love sharing the knowledge that I have. And you guys can always send me a question. I have people send me pictures of plants. Hey, what is this? Or can you help me with this? And it's like I'm on here several times a day, so definitely reach out if you have any questions or concerns or what have you. I appreciate every single one of you. Like I said, I'll be back at noon today, so if you want to hang out with me at a storage unit auction and see what kind of goodies we have, hopefully we've got a lot of goodies, a lot of treasure, and not much trash. But you never know. You never know. And then tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. Central, and it's either 9 or 9:30 p.m. Central, we'll be doing Pothos. And I think I've got a couple of Scindapsus, but mostly Pothos. And then after that,
it's storage units for pretty much the whole rest of the week. So I know, right? Cross your fingers that we've got some treasures in there. I can tell you if there's any football fans in here, and I don't have them handy. We did come across one huge box of the little mini helmets that are in acrylic display cases, and there's like every team imaginable. We haven't gone through it other than to go, wow, those are freaking cool, and they're like apparently expensive too. So we did find those. I know there's some superhero stuff. I know there's kids books. I know there's clothes. But yeah, who knows? Yeah. These are like mini. They're like I want to say quarter size of the actual of the real helmet. But they're cool and they're in little acrylic display cases. They're really neat. But anyway. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Maybe we'll see you around noon or tomorrow for a plant sale. Have a great day. Let's see if there's anybody on. Who do we want to raid into? Let's see. We always go into Emerald Root, so let's choose somebody new, somebody different. Let's go into. Oh, every time I go in there, he always doesn't see me. But let's try Plant Newbie. Anybody want to go into Plant Newbie? Get your wolves ready, guys. We'll go into Plant Newbie. Let him know that we're in raiding because he has a bad habit of missing it sometimes. But that's all right. It's all right. You guys have a great day. Get your wolves ready. We're going to go raid into Plant Newbie. Love you guys.